Welcome, my dear students. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, my dears. This is a new lecture in the business communication. And this is your teacher, Dr. Osama Kashwaz, you here. Uh, let's go directly to the purpose for which we came today. And just let us know what we came for. And actually, here we go for the first thing, which is the purpose of business communication. We know that the communication means the transformation of and the flow of information from the sender to the receiver. And we knew also about what we call the code and encode and decode. And we mean by the encode that the message should be understood from the receiver by the same way the sender sends it. And the decode is to understand when the same perception what the sender wants in the same way. So we have encode and we have decode and we have mean of communication, which may be like any kind of communication, like it's the tools like radio, TV, what I'm doing just now, like communicating with you with the overhead projector or whatever. Those are all means of communication. Also, let me say about the types of communication which I'm using now. I'm using verbal communication. I'm using gesture communication with my hands. I'm moving and body language sometimes. This is also a kind of communication. I'm using a written communication, which is in the curriculum in front of you here. And this is also a kind of communication. And the other point important in the communication we said before is the feedback. Like for me now, when I do a feedback with you guys, the feedback in a figure of exams, the exams is a feedback. So to make sure that you understood the communication or you understood, you decode it as the way exactly I encode it. By other meaning, you understand the message in the same way I want to conduct it and deliver it to you. This is what we call the communication and the types of communication. Let's move now forward into another point here. The purpose of communication. We'll start today to talk about the purpose of business communication. The role of the organization structure and culture, communication system within and between organizations. We'll start to talk about this point today and hope that we will cover it. The purpose of business communication. What is the purpose of business communication? All the organizations have a purpose of communicate because we are always, the purpose of business communication is to understand more. Let me reduce the understand more fully how the process function most effectively. Okay, this is the meaning of the communication. Why we do communicate? We communicate through the letters, memos, reports, using the correct language approach. The information can enter an organization in many ways, like as example, personal experience of staff, newspaper and medias, television. All these are ways to get the communication from and to get the information from customers and competitors. The main focus of business communication are, and this is what the point which I want to focus on just now. I want to focus on this point, my dears. The main focus of business communication, we need to focus on this point. We need focusing on this point are to give information, make your ideas understood, initiate some action, and share ideas, attitudes, beliefs, and establish links with other people. Those are the main purposes of the main functions of business communications. Here I will go just now, Control and C, and I will put my first question in this point. What are the, here we go. What are the purpose of business communication? What are the purposes? P-U-R-P-O-S-E-S, purposes of business, B-U-S-I-N-E-S-S, communication, C-O-M-M-U-N-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. What are the purposes of the business communication? And this is my first question today. What are the purposes of business communications? Here is our question today, the first question for us today here, and we will go right now. So I will stand here like around 5 minutes to give the answers, then I will move forward. Okay. Here we go now. Those are the main focus ideas of business communication. What is the role of the organizational structure in the business communication? How is it? Why there is a rule for a business structure? Yes. The structure means like how it works, how the organization works, how the system of the chain of command and the levels and the hierarchy, the levels of management. We have top management, we have middle management, we have lower level management. Nevertheless, that the culture and which with its own types, like the power culture, which is often developed from one-man band or entrepreneur. The one person will control all the communication within the organization. This we call power culture, and may deliberately encourage or block certain information. This is the first type. Second type is the rule culture. Information passes from the top down to clearly defined departments to people with clarity defined responsibilities. So here it used, when we say the rule culture, means we are working based on the hierarchy, from the top management to the lower level management. Task culture. Here, teams. When we say task, that means there will be teams of people will work together on a particular project in problem-solving groups according to personal expertise rather than status. So this is another kind of culture. We have the person culture. So communication will be within those kind of culture. The person culture, the most important factor here is the personal needs of the staff, their individual growth and development. Okay. Communication system within and between organization. The formal communication system is an organization set out of the command structure and the relationship between the departments within it. So this is the formal. We have formal communication and we have informal communication. The formal communication is what we care about because this will go within the organizational structure. This will go within the organizational structure. As example here, if you can see in this figure, this is a chief manager and this is a top management. Look at the hierarchy. So the information will go down from the chief executive, the chief executive, into the directors or the general manager, the general of finance, the general of sales and marketing, the general of production, and the sales of personnel. Then from there, still the information will flow from this level into the lower level controllers and so on. Then from that lower level, it will go into the operational teams and subordinates. This is the structure by which the communication system in organization. So this is the structure where the communication will flow. Okay. So how it will move like? It moves like this, down vertical. So from the top management, it goes down to the lower levels of management. like that way, from the senior management to the middle management, and from the middle management, it will go to the lower levels in management. And also, there is upward vertical flow. Like what? When the information comes from the lower levels into the upper levels, in that case, we say this is lower level management, from lower levels into higher levels management. Also horizontal. Horizontal means the same people on the same level. As example, you guys now are students together. So you are on the same level, like, so you exchange the information. So X, let's say X Joe, and Z is Zeng. And we have Y here, let's say Yelia in the middle. So it will go from Joe to Yelia, and Yelia will pass it over to Zeng. Pass over what? Pass over the information. This is the system. And also we have, that doesn't mean now we talk about vertical communication up to down, and horizontal, vertical from down to top. And we talk about horizontal communication, but that doesn't mean that only these are the ways by which the communication goes inside the organization. We have also, based on the structure, this is the horizontal. We have also diagonal communication. Diagonal communication goes like diagonal, like this way. It doesn't go, it goes like, it does like, as example, from A to 5 and 6, and 6 to I, and 5 to IX, and so on. So this is diagonal, means it doesn't go on the same vertical or horizontal, but it takes a figure of diagonals. Those are the figures of the communication. So I will go now for my second question today. What are the types of communication based on the type of structure? So what are the types of communication based on the types of structure, of organizational structure? By other meaning, organizational structure. Here we go. So here what will happen is that we will go through the organizational structures, and we have many kinds of structures here, like I said before. We have many types of structure. We have vertical structure, we have horizontal structure, and so on. So like we said here, based on the structure, we have vertical, we have horizontal, the vertical from top to bottom, and the horizontal from bottom to top. And we have also, like you see, diagonal communication, which come like that way, from a point to a point in a figure of not horizontal and not vertical, but it comes like in a bend way, like that way. Those are the types of the communication based on the type of structure itself. Okay, now we will move forward to another point. The communication process, this is very important, and actually I will take this as a question right now because it's important, and I will tell you, comment on the following graph. Here I will say this is the core of the communication. Actually, when I say here, actually when I say comment on the following graph. On the graph here, I will put this median or the communication. Now I will go to discuss what I was just saying. Like we said here, like I tell you in the start, we have sender, and we have the sender will encode the message, means sending. And it doesn't mean that it must be persons together, live persons together to do an communication process. It doesn't mean it must be people. So what I mean by this, if you are standing in the traffic signal, in the traffic on the light, and you find red. So this light is the sender then. It's sending you a message, encode a message, which is red. So it goes through the channel. The channel is the traffic signal, that one which is on the stand of the traffic signal. Then from your side, you have to decode it. Decode it means when it is red, that means you have to stop. And this is the audience, which is you. Or when it is green, it means that when it encodes green, your decode is to walk. When it's encoding red, your decoding is to stop. That is why we said about the so the elements of any communication process is there is a sender, the sender encode the message and he send it through a channel or a medium, like I'm just now. The channel of medium which I'm using just now is using the Wi-Fi, the laptop, overhead projectors. All these are mediums to communicate with you, to send you the message. The message is this lesson or this lecture. And now you decode it, you understood it in the same way I sent it, based on the same, otherwise there will be a gap. And here you understood what I want to talk about. So the feedback of sender, if it is possible, like what we say, the feedback here is that you are now, as a receiver, will send back a feedback. For me, the feedback is your assignments or participation in class, or whenever I ask a question and you answer it, then this is a feedback. A feedback to make sure that the message had been received well and you understood it according to the way I sent it, no more, no less. Here we go also to another point now. That are, we said the encoding and transmission, and that's what I discussed just now, channels of communication. What are the channels of communication? This is very important. What are the channels of communication? And actually, this will be question number 4 today. What are the channels? I will correct it now. Channels of communication. What are the channels of communication? What are the channels of communication? What are those channels? What we are using just now is the channels of communication. The laptop, the Wi-Fi, the Zoom, those are all channels of communication. The written, what you are watching, it's written in front of you, it's written communication as well, and so on. What are the channels of communication? Let's see what are the channels. They are face-to-face. When I'm with you in class, we consider this face-to-face. As example, the meetings. We're talking about business communication. So we'll talk about the business interviews, presentations, informal discussion. Informal is different than the formal. The formal is thing that is must be written as like when the board of directors meet, official meeting, this is formal discussion. But informal discussion is like a brothers and sister friends. This we call it informal, means it's not in the form or right or documented. Orally, that's what I'm doing just now. Written, like what you see in front of you, it's written. Visual, you can see it using charts, tables, diagrams, slides, maps. So all these are visuals. Once we talk about now the channels of communication, once we talk about what are the channels of communication, we will move forward to the internal channels of communication. Internal channels of communication. These are the documents which we are using in the organization, which we use in the organization. Like as example now, let's see here the processing of immediate information to individual with an organization will include telephone messages. Look at this, internal memorandums or messages. Those all are internal channels of communication. what I'm using inside the fax, the internet, the telephone messages, the memorandums, the minutes, the agenda. All these are things like papers, paperwork, all these records, the records like the accounting records. This also because accounting records can give us information about the problem or anything we want to talk about. Yes, we have also the reports, we have house journals, we have meeting of interest groups or teams, we have personal issues may well be dealt with orally. So any kind of communication, like we said now, the internet, the memorandums, the all these are internal channels of communications. Bookkeeping records, all these are things that I keep in the organization and I use it as internal means of communication. Well, about the internal channels of external channels of communication need not restrict information exchange to an external organization. Okay, like the brochures, sales literature, or any paid form advertising, or a paid for or a paid form of advertising is also accessible to those within the organization. Okay. It takes sometimes also a form of letters, telephone, calls, reports, like the internal. Then it won't be necessary for everyone within your organization to have copies. Okay, this is a point, but still, external means comes to me from outside, internal is from inside the organization. Okay, what are the factors by which I will choose the channel of communication? On what I will depend to choose a channel of communication? Actually, it's based on the following. It depends, it's a function, or it depends on number of factors. So using the channel of communication depends on how far it's very urgent for the message and the time. So if you are like, you need to give some instructions to the workers, that doesn't mean that you have to use the phone or to make a quickly meeting or whatever. No, you can send this within a note paper or documented by a message to all the departments. As example, whether the information is to be transmitted internally or externally. So if it is internal, you will depend on internal channels like the messages, the memorandums, all this will help. Externally, you may use this, and you may use also another ways like the advertising or whatever. Okay. The size of the location of your audience, how far they are, little or too much. The nature of the information itself. The need of a written record. Whether the message is sensitive or confidential. The cost of communicating. You depend also, you try always to reduce the cost. So you choose the proper channel of communication, which should reduce your cost. The need for interaction and feedback. Those, if also this will depend on. Okay. We say the decoding, we talk about the decoding, and we say the decoding is the opposite of encoding. That you, as a receiver, what way did you understand the message? How did you understand it? So this means the decode. So you have to understand it on the same way. The feedback, we said about the feedback. Also, we talk about the feedback. Okay. So what about the business? How about the business? We talk in general about the communication. But when it comes to business, how about the business looks like? Is it same like all this which we talk about applied on the business units? Yes. it indeed apply on that units. And this is why conversation between friends are very different from those between the business partners. So we have oral communication. The oral communication is not enough in business, is not enough. To oral communicate, no. In business, everything must be written, because now I'm in a holiday and I'm the boss, and came a person to replace me. This person, there are rules. So he will check out the rules which I did, not from the air. It must be written. It must be recorded. Listening. An oral communication is unsuccessful if it does not include listening. So listening is important. Without listening, what is the use? If you are communicating orally and the other person is not listening to you, then no way. The feedback. No any value for the communication without a good feedback. The feedback show you, are you on the right path? Did the receiver understand the message exactly like the way you want to send it? Or he understood it in another meaning, or he understood it another way. So it's very important to have a feedback from the receiver to make sure that he understood the message in the same way you want to deliver it as a sender. Here we go now for the most important part here. Key factors for effective communication. What are those key factors which are very important in the effective communication? What are those? What are those factors? We'll see now how far it goes here. What are the factors? Let me take the question first here. What are the key factors for effective communication? Of course, when we talk about communication, we are talking about business communication. What are the key factors for effective communication? And this today is question number 4. What are the key factors for effective communication? This is question 4 today, and very important question as well. And we will go here in between the lines. Okay. The internal and unintentional and intentional communication. But let me first talk about here. The effective communication is not just about information exchange, but you have also within and between organizations. The style of communication we use may depend on the importance we feel that the communication. So based on it, very important information, secret and confidential, then it must be written in a very secured messages, covered messages. If it is the internet, using the internet, then that kind you have to protect it with security safe, like password or whatever. Okay. The contact or the response may have, it may reflect the status and the standing of all participants in the communication. It may be supportive or submissive activity. It may be a core rather than a pleasure. So the sender will certainly vary his or her approach to the communication independency of the medium or the message which is used. Sometimes the communication may be directed at one audience, but intended for someone with more power in the process. It could be an explanation also. Also, I have also here, just 1 second, because I had also about the effective communication. Let us see here points about the effective communication actually. I will go here to points about the effective communication. Which also show me the effective communication points. 5 keys for effective business communication. To have a good business communication. First, have conviction. Second, use symbolism and metaphor. Third, use intentional repetition. Fourth, be passionate. 5, be relevant. Those are in general are 5 key factors for effective business communication. Okay, those are the factors about the effective communication, which we said about just now, and this might help you also in answering these questions. Communication style then vary according to the status, perception, and the attitude of the sender. So it's based on the sender's characteristics as well. One of the things which will affect on the degree of the effectiveness of the communication is the sender's attitudes. How the sender like? How is he? What's his perception? His status, his attitudes? All this will affect about the communication. So we have also a type of communication to compare between both of them. We have the intentional and unintentional communication process, which also we have to know what the difference between them. The intentional communication, when you write a letter, speak to a group or make a telephone call. So this is intentional. That's you did it purposely. You did it purposely. You did it and you mean it. Okay. But the unintentional communication, all the time you communicate intentionally, you are also communicating unintentionally in the same time. At individuals, we can never entirely assess what additional messages we are communicating. These are influenced by the rule, perception, or status of those whom you deliver or you communicate. So inside the intentional, it might be unintentional as well. Okay, this is another point. It's talking, giving examples about how sometimes the way of communication might be suitable for something and might be not suitable for another thing. We'll go now to the personality perceptions. We function as persons we are persons we believe ourselves to be, persons as perceived by others. Those are how we understand. What about the rumor? Rumors also, despite our analysis of intentional or unintentional communication, rumors is the most effective form of communication within organization. A rumor means that you add something to the talk. Sometimes rumors are intentional or unintentional leaks of information, which become part of the organizational culture prior to an official statement being made. Yes, so these kind of behavior might affect positively or negatively. Okay. Rumors need to be sustained or denied by persons in authority. So don't depend on the rumors. Don't depend on the rumors to build decisions because it's mostly fault. So you depend on something fault in making decisions. That's why. Status. The confidence that readers and listeners have in communication is affected by the extent to which they believe the information and the credibility of the communication. Most of the credibility means the confidence in the information is derived from perceived status. This is the point. So that is the point regarding within an organization, key members have status conferred upon them according to their position, their extent of technical knowledge, ability to convey enthusiasm and prejudice and corporate images. All this affect in the organization and affect on the communication. The feedback also is very important. The feedback is very important because it gives you a feeling that everything is right. So communication between and within the organization is constantly evaluated and repeated unless there is a mechanism to deal with incoming and outgoing information, the communication becomes worthless. So usually it's very important to record the informations. Any information or any informal changes or whatever must be recorded. Most communications require some action, maybe by immediately, but it may be well from the basis of later communications. Making notes is very important also, and writing and agendas and filling in and storing the data on desks. All this helps so much for the accuracy of the information. We'll come now to the conclusion of this chapter. Effective communication within and between organizations is dependent on human relations and organization context. So two things, the human relations and the context of the organizational context that is always influenced and influencing by many things. Information must be appropriate, of course. To make a positive, effective communication, it must be appropriate to the extent of the medium, accessibility, Clear, must be clear, accessible, presented to attract the attention, because individuals receive so many messages and communication, so it must be always to attract the people. We can summarize the key factors. This is very important. This is very important. The key factors, and I said it from another notes, and I'm saying from this notes again, the key factors for a best communication would be the relevance, accessibility, precision means accuracy, attract attention, congeniality, and credibility means to be confident about it. Those are the main points which affect the communication. I shall stop here now for the moment and see you in the next video. Shall stop here for the moment and see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, everyone.